The time now is 5:05. I would like to officially start our meeting. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ayabami Bell-Torrance, and I am a marketing coordinator for Ddot. Thank you for joining us for our monthly community input meeting, and a special welcome to those who may be joining us for the very first time. Excuse me. I would like to get now straight into our introductions. I'm going to call in no particular order. Mr. Zek.
Good afternoon. My name is Richard Zek, Chief Safety Officer for Ddot.
Chief Brown.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Chief Ricky Brown, Transit Police.
Ms. Walsh. Oh, I see.
Good afternoon, Marianne Walsh, Deputy Director, Administration, Ddot.
Thank you. And I see Steve, or hear Steve.
Yes, I'm here. Okay.
You say who you are?
Steve Patrick, Executive Manager for Service Development and Scheduling.
Mr. Lozen.
Hi, I'm Don Lozen. I'm the Regulatory Compliance Officer for ADA.
Ms. Lukowski.
Hi, I'm Kristen Lukowski, also on the marketing team.
Pittman.
Good afternoon, Lois Pittman, Deputy Director of Transportation, Operations and Maintenance for Ddot.
Mr. Dolly.
Good afternoon, Mike Dolly, Vehicle Maintenance Division.
Ms. Wimberly.
Good afternoon. I'm Sandra Wimberly, Assistant Director Administration. My apologies, I'm having a few Zoom issues with my camera this evening.
Mr. Payan.
Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. Jose Payan, Graphic Designer, Ddot Marketing.
Okay, and I see our Executive Director.
Hello, Michael Oglesby, Executive Director of Transit for the City of Detroit.
Wait, did I miss anyone? Okay. So we'll go time now for our meeting rules. Public comment will take place following our presentation. You are limited to 2 minutes, and I'll announce when that time is up. Please respect that time and note that you will be muted for going over. As always, no personal attacks or foul language will be tolerated. I do want to acknowledge that while we did request an ASL interpreter for tonight in a timely manner, we were not able to secure anyone. We do have an alternative accommodation in place with our closed captioning. As we prepare for our presentation, I do also have a few reminders. By participating in the Zoom meeting, you are granting permission for your name, image, likeness, as well as audio and video recordings to be used by Ddot. If you'd like to request to comment, simply raise your hand using the hand icon. If you are using the dial-in only phone option, you can enter *9, and that serves as the raise hand feature to request to speak or ask a question. You may also submit your questions and comments to Ddot staff using the chat function, which will be open during public comment. Before asking a question or comment, please be sure to unmute your audio. We also ask that you state your name or organization. And following your comments, please mute your audio again. We're going to go now into our presentation. The mask usage has been extended through January 18th. This is because the federal government has extended the requirements for travelers to wear masks on public transportation, including buses, again through January 18th. in response to the ongoing risk of the COVID-19 pandemic. The FTA mask requirement does extend to paratransit. Masks are required to be worn over the nose and mouth by drivers and riders while in the vehicle and during transport. Masks are supplied for those riders in need of one. Boarding will be denied if riders refuse to wear a mask, and drivers will be permanently removed from service for not wearing masks. And that is regarding the update to paratransit. And we need your help keeping our operators safe. Safety is the #1 priority for Ddot. Please do not distract our operators while they are driving. Any violence toward Ddot operators and other employees simply will not be tolerated. In regards to our November proposed service changes, know that Ddot is reviewing all public comments. After reviewing those comments, the final determination of the November service changes will be made, posted, and distributed on our website, social media, email newsletter, and Ddot locations. The implementation date is set for November 15th. A lot of you have been asking about our express and direct routes. Well, bringing back those routes would not be possible at this time without compromising service reliability or making further reductions to the proposed November services. While the absence of these services may increase travel times and require transfers for some customers, we are working to provide a consistent, reliable, and dependable service. There's an open LAC board seat. The local advisory council is looking for a District 2 representative. The seat is open to all seniors or persons with disabilities living in District 2. It will fill a term ending December 31st, 2024. Now, if you're interested, please contact Don Lozen at 313-573-2708 or DONLOZ@DetroitMI.gov. Detroit MetroLift. We have a mobile app beta that has been made available for 10 users. We're gathering feedback from them before rolling it out to all Detroit MetroLift riders. The quality assurance supervisor is also going out on the road to ensure continuous quality performance and improvements. Good news, new buses are on the way. Ddot is in the process of ordering 28 new buses to replace 48 buses from our fleet. Production will start in November of this year. Ddot will start receiving new buses in February. 20 additional new buses will also be ordered next year, and the estimated delivery of 4 Proterra electric buses is set for 2022. We're proud of our Wayne State University partnership. We began partnering with them in 2014 and they expanded that to SMART in 2019. Wayne State students and employees now ride Ddot buses for free. And thanks to that partnership, we also recently shared that information with Wayne State students and employees at an event to promote the partnership. And as also another part of our community outreach, Ddot employees connected with riders and residents at a recent bustle block party. Ddot recently held Maintenance Appreciation Days. It was our thank you to maintenance for keeping us running. Our executive director, Michael Oglesby, he spoke to mechanics on all shifts and listened to their concerns. And Ddot staff was on hand and provided refreshments. Upcoming meetings. Well, our next community input meeting takes place Thursday, October 21st at 5 p.m. And the next local advisory council meeting is Tuesday, November 16th at 10 a.m. That is all the department updates I have. Of course, you can also keep up to date on our website at detroitmi.gov/DDOT. And of course, follow us on social media, our Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at RideDDOT. It's now time for our public comments. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Kristen, to call our first person, and the chat will be open momentarily as well.
Okay, the first hand up I see is Mr. Cunningham.
On Facebook, Cunningham, on Facebook, Cunningham, on Facebook, Cunningham. Chief Ricky Brown sent me an email that it felt a little intimidating, and for no reason. I keep a digital recorder around my neck at all times because I am an assertive person, and people like to hear what they want to hear, and they will lie. And so it keeps it kind of transparent. I'm not a sugarcoater, never have been, never will be. But I do appreciate you guys responding and getting some flyers into the locations that took a long time to get. So the world and the reporters are listening. It is very shameful that Oglesby and all the staff always never responds and they get off the screen. But I mean, that's what they always do. That's what I see. And then also there was a ban for me coming to the main. The main office, and I was very polite. Security brought me back, so there was no offense of any kind. But so I was thinking about sending an attorney letter to DDOT in regards to that, to get specifics, just clarity and transparency on that. They need bus shelters before winter. These DDOT bus cuts are terrible. My number is 313-334-9669. What else did I want to say? Thanks for having the chat open, removing the hurdle of passcode. Lost my train of thought. I appreciate all the other activists. I'm a taxi driver. I make money off bad bus service. Bad bus service means more crime. And actually, I went up and down time and passed out flyers, and no one knew about anything in the world. I'm a taxi driver all around the city. No one got any flyers or anything, period. Out of 40 people, no one got any flyers. No one seen any DDOT workers going out into the community and let them know, as they lied and said at city council, and as they lied and said at these meetings. Well, lie may be a strong word, but from east to west, southwest, I heard nothing. I asked a lot of questions, put some videos on Facebook.
That is time, thank you. That is time.
Good afternoon. This is Chief Brown. In response, Mr. Cunningham, I truly apologize if you felt intimidated by the emails. It was simply to provide you the requested information that you had. So again, you know how to reach out to me, and you can always reach out to me, and I'll provide the information when I have it available. Thank you.
Yes, and I'd like to comment in response to my not commenting. I have been here for probably over 16 months, and I have addressed every question that anybody has brought to me. You may not like the answer, but it's the truthful one. As a matter of fact, the last time that I had a similar conversation with the same caller, I came back and directly answered the question and made sure that everybody understood for clarity that I answered the question. And yet I get comments like that. I understand this is public comment. It's a free world. You can say whatever you want, but I think being truthful is very important. And I have never not answered a question that was directed towards me. If I don't know the answer, I will have staff answer. So with that, I hope that we have a productive meeting and no finger pointing.
Thank you. The next hand up I see is Robert Pavlovsky.
Good afternoon, everyone. Robert Pavlovsky, daily rider on DDOT. No really concerns, but I'd like to give a good note that the service changes. the service changes, I know a lot of people are upset about, and the frequency and how they can't get around. I completely understand and I agree with you 100%. But I want to shine some light on one thing. The express routes that were in the presentation, they do need some work. I do feel your pain for anybody that uses those express routes to get downtown and back. I completely understand. But what this does, it shines some light, and it also gives an opportunity to get those routes revamped. So I want to give, and I like and plus there wasn't a lot of ridership on them. So I completely understand why you suspended them. And it's kind of a good idea that you did in the long run, because they weren't the routing now and all the detours and all the construction, there wasn't ridership, and there were so many detours and everything else to it. So I just want to say that, hopefully we can get these routes back up and running soon, but I'd like to see some change into them. That's what I'd like to see in the long run. But it was a good thing suspending them temporarily because they needed change. So good job on that. I do have some more comments, but I'd like to be respectful of the people's time and have a other chance to speak. So thank you again for letting me speak tonight. Appreciate it. Take care.
All right, thank you. Mr. Verse, or next, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Larry Donald Verse for the Choice People's Platform Transit Justice Team. And rather than comments, I have several questions that I would like answered, some of which I think I know the answer to. And if you can't remember the question, I'm still here and I will be able to recite it. I will go forward. 1, if Ddot is a public service, why is it functioning as a for-profit entity? Is this by order of the mayor? 2, how many people did Ddot staff personally interview on the routes it intends to eliminate or suspend? 3, why do passengers of Metrolift have to pay for transportation when Ddot is paying, according to my understanding, Metrolift in excess of $15 per passenger for each transit trip? Okay. 4, to your best knowledge and understanding and information, is the Q Line a public transportation entity as is Ddot Smart and the People Mover? Those are my questions. Can I get us some answers? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Verse, how are you doing? Michael Oglesby. I'll answer a few of them and let staff jump in and answer the other ones. The question about Ddot operating as a for-profit, public transportation, there's no profit involved. As a matter of fact, that's the reason why fares are required. And typically the fares are approximately from 15 to 20%, depending on where you are. That goes towards the operating cost. Unfortunately, we're having some issues. So we don't operate as a for-profit location. We are currently, if you're referring, and I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I'm going to guess, if you are referring to the fact that we are right-sizing the system, it's based on the funding that's available. So it's not trying to make any money in any way. As a matter of fact, there's additional money. It goes right back into public transportation. As far as the Q Line, the Q Line is a private owned function, rail system. It is not a public entity. I've been asked if it is under me as a transportation, because I do have the People Mover, and the answer to that is it is not. Is there a thought that it should be or it could be? Yes, I've heard rumblings, but it is not a public or company. As far as passengers in Metrolift, even though it's $15, it costs $15 to run the service. Typically, any place else, it could go anywhere from $50 to $75 that the agency pays, and then it's typical that there's a standard fee that the rider pays. I believe it can be no more than twice the amount of the fixed route fare. I think it can be up to $2 or $2.50 or something like that. So every place has a fee. And it's a very short fee, but the rest is supplemental. For example, some of the other locations that have transportation that costs up to, let's say, $60, I believe Smart cost at one part of it, they contribute $50 towards it. They still accept the actual fee itself, but it supplements the rider having to pay that much. So actually, it's a good thing. And that's why I always say that public transportation on a whole is not for profit. As a matter of fact, it costs a lot of money. As far as the staff routes, the presentation that took place, I'll let staff handle that because they did the presentation. I don't want to take away from their ability there. So I don't know if Steve or somebody that gave the presentation can answer the question of were people that ride the buses interviewed on the suspended portion. Or not the suspended, let me say it again, the proposed suspended routes.
Thank
So
you.
see,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
there you
can
go.
speak to some of that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We 2 weeks ago, we did the public hearing. We had 2 presentations at the public hearing, and we had a public comment period that ended yesterday. And during that time, staff have distributed about 2,000 brochures, which we realize is only a fraction of the ridership. But and plus we've had the website and other things to get the word out about these changes. We've specifically gone to the routes that we know are being cut. We've sent people but we can't personally hand out brochures to every single rider. We simply don't have the resources, but we made a special efforts to look at those routes and to make sure that that people on those routes or that we reach at least some of them or most of them if we could. But we realized that we did not reach everyone, and it's not perfect, but we are making our decisions based on ridership and on resources. If we have empty buses driving around and we have buses that are packed where there's trips missing, we're trying to right size the system so we can operate every trip on the schedule. Personally, it took me, I started this meeting on my cell phone because it took me 2 hours to get home today on the Dexter bus. And that's because of the trips that were missing. So we know it's a problem. It's not because we don't have enough trips on the schedule. There were plenty of trips on the schedule. So adding to the schedule would not have helped. The only thing that would help would be to have a schedule that we can deliver every day. And that is the purpose of the changes that we're, the short-term changes that we're proposing at this time until we're able to increase the service levels to where they need to be.
Okay. Thank you. I'll yield the balance of my time.
Thank you, and thank you, Steve. I know there's a few other comments in chat, and we'll get to some of those as well, but I do want to acknowledge one sent from Ms. Marguerite. She was asking about, was anything being done, cars, the city vehicles? She may have reached out to Transit Police about this, so I don't know if this is an email that was already, but I do want to acknowledge her comment in the chat.
This is
Sorry. Okay, you got it, Chief.
I was going through the chat to find it, so I'll respond once I do.
Thank you. Kristen, we can go ahead then and then give Chief a chance. He's going to respond in the chat to him.
Okay. Next hand up I see is Ms. Burnett.
Good evening, all. How are we all doing this evening? One of my concerns with the changes in the bus route is the timing that the passengers are using the bus. Is there a way to accommodate the small number of people at a certain time of the day and still use those buses in other means and on other routes? That's a question that I had asked prior to this. I wasn't sure whether or not it had been looked at and how, if it had, how was it addressed? Was there just not enough information? Were the people not riding mostly in the morning and then in the evening to return home from work? Could someone possibly address that?
Steve, I know you're going to address that, but let me just speak in general about one of the tricky parts about trying to put a schedule together in this day and age. Typically, peak and non-peak, you know, the time frame that people are going to work and the time frame that people aren't going to work. Our Ddot riders are at various hours at various times. You know, we have a route that we can miss trips. We can miss the same amount of trips per day, but they can be at different times. That's how sporadic it is. And that's one of the reasons why it's our job to provide steady service. And then you plan for that. And we make sure that we deliver that service. Some of the routes that are really, that only have 10 boardings a day, 75 boardings a day, which I don't think even equals one person an hour. It would be very difficult to try to create a schedule to send one bus out to make sure you get that one person to drop them off to then go back in, because it's a 40-foot bus. We're not a taxi service. We are a public transit service, but we still take into consideration when we're building our routes, the ability to provide or fish where the fish are, if you will, or provide transportation in the locations that people are riding. Steve, I know you want to comment on it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when we, next year, when you work on the comprehensive operational analysis, which will have extensive public involvement, one of the tools we might consider is something called mobility on demand. And that might be suitable for things like you're mentioning, but for the most part, the boardings that are on these routes that we're cutting or suspending, proposing to suspend in November, most of those boardings are within a half a mile of other routes. So we expect most people to continue to use the fixed route system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I rode the Tyron bus yesterday, and just everyone got on and off at the transfer point. So I rode a trip and a half, almost a whole round trip, and I only saw 3 people get on the bus, and they were all at transfer points.
You know, Steve, it's funny that you say that. I just saw in the comment section, somebody said they had an issue with the Tyron route being eliminated. But based on the comments that you just said, how would you address that question?
I would say that nearly all the passengers have alternative services, either at the places where they got on and off, or very close by. And we sent people out today to look at the schools, to do point checks at the schools. As I mentioned, I rode the bus yesterday afternoon. So we are, and most of the schools are also served by other routes. So we're trying to get as much feedback as we can, but if we hear from actual passengers who tell us where they get on and off, that would be helpful as well.
Okay. The next hand up I see is Stephen Boyle.
Hi. Hello, this is Stephen Boyle. I'm resident in District 3. I live on John R. So I've got two bus routes that are fairly close to me. Yesterday, I tried to get on the Woodward bus at about 3:00 p.m. And I found this application on Google Play called the Ddot Bus Tracker. It's actually pretty decent. And I use it in combination with the transit app, because I know the transit app geolocates the bus based on ridership and not just what DDOT reports to transit. What happened at 3:00 yesterday, though, was I went over there and it said that the next bus coming southbound on Route 4 was 33 minutes. And to go northbound was 39 minutes. So I was really confused because I thought we had somewhere around 10 to 12 minutes, but even 20 minutes would have been within the proposed changes. But to go out to 39 minutes or 33 minutes even is a little more excessive. It's a very busy route, and hopefully we can service it. Maybe the bus supervisors can actually bring a bus into the middle of the route as it's running, so that we can handle the ridership demand that's happening. I also was curious if we're doing anything with Tiger funding for bus shelters this winter. It's going to be cold, and we like to have shelter. It's really important. We're kind of also wondering if there's a shortage of parts and maintenance, or is it labor? We're not sure exactly, but I heard something of over 50 buses at Shoemaker Terminal torn up, waiting for repairs. That's a lot of buses. And I'm wondering if you can actually do what the police seem to do and go after a bigger share of UTOG funding.
Thank you. That is time.
Let me start with that answer. Thank you very much for all your comments, by the way. We are jotting them down and we're taking them into consideration. As far as the tracker goes, the transit app is the transit app that we're telling everybody to use. It is a third-party app. We have been internally working diligently to create our own app. We have not launched it yet, but you can still go on apparently and grab it, which you have, but that has not even been launched. So the Ddot Bus Tracker is going to eventually be more accurate because it's linked directly to our new installed Clever Device information. It will be owned and controlled by us, and you will have something that is extremely accurate, which we intend to have. Really, the goal is to speed it up and have it up and running for everybody by the time we do these service changes. So you not only have buses coming at the times that we say, but you also can track exactly where the bus is, and we can track it. So we'll be looking at the same information you have. So you spoiled my fun and surprise there, but that's okay. The other questions I'll let Steph answer, but as far as the 50 buses, we have had buses in repair. They go in and out on a regular basis, and that is nothing new. We have 288 vehicles. We don't need that many within the course of a day. So the number of buses that we have in repair, whether they're in and out at a certain time, has not been an effect on having buses on the street. So that hasn't been a problem. We haven't had a shortage of vehicles. As far as a shortage in parts and maintenance, there was a rumor that there was a shortage of parts, and believe it or not, at one point during COVID, in the transition of the fiscal year, parts were on hold because of more of a switching over from one year to the next year. That was brought to our attention. We immediately fixed it, and it did not become an issue. Those I can answer. I think staff can probably, and as far as bus shelters go, we always go after funding for bus shelters. As a matter of fact, eventually, we have to take a bite of this, bite one step at a time. We're working on the service portion and simultaneously working on getting funding and going after all funding available. There's infrastructure funding. There's all kinds of grants and funding that's out there. And we're currently going after everything. And one of the things we're looking at is our shelters. At one point, somebody had commented, well, if you get new shelters, make sure they're not glass, because the ones that we got, that we have are easy to break. Well, lesson learned. Those were ordered when I came on board, and we're actually looking at alternatives to that too. Steve, I don't know if there was anything you wanted to add to that, but I think from the bus shelter standpoint anyway. I can almost hear you. You're on mute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have an advertising shelter program now, so that should increase the our ability to put more shelters on the street faster than we were before.
I called in and I wanted to run an ad in the overhead on the buses, and they sent me to Brooklyn Outdoor for advertising, and they told me all they do is the shelters. They don't do advertising in the overhead on the buses. So I don't know how to find out about that. I wanted to run an ad over everybody's head.
When you say overhead on the buses, are you talking about the front of the bus?
No, inside the bus over the ridership.
Oh, okay, yeah. Why don't the staff can get the information? There's a program, I think it's within marketing. We can get your information. I'm sure there's a way that they can access that, right, Marianne?
Hello, sir. Yes, if you want to put your email address in the chat room, or I can put mine in and you can get in touch with me directly.
Thank you. Next hand up I see is Bryce.
Hi, my name is Bryce Huffman. I'm a reporter at Bridge Detroit. This is more of a question than a comment. I was just wondering, what is the preferred way to reach out to folks at Ddot to ask questions? Recently, I've just been going through someone in the mayor's office, and then they'll reach out to folks, but I was wondering if there is a preferred way that I reach out to y'all with questions and comments. Thank you.
Hello, sir. My name is Marianne Walsh. If I could ask Ms. Lukowski to put her email in the chat to Mr. Bryce, that would be the preferred method at this time.
Thank you.
Either me directly or the mayor's office we should be able to get back to you. And the next hand up I see is Renard.
All right, good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Okay. All right. I got a two-part question, and one of them is, first of all, I have a suggestion for Tireman and also for Claremont and then junction number 26. I want to echo previous commenter Victoria when she elicited her idea to say, like, why not just run them every 60 minutes instead of just eliminating the routes? I would also like to know, what is the path to restoration of service as well too? The thing that I don't understand is, Ddot has basically to date received $136,228,120 from the ARP, CISRA, and CARES Act. How does that bode well with, how does that match with the cuts? I just don't understand how we're slowing down the bus service to 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and 60-minute headways, and we got all this funding in addition to the city of Detroit funding that it gives to Ddot every single year. How are these cuts being justified, and what data is being used? Of course, during the pandemic, all ridership is going to be lower, and those routes are going to be lower as well too. Did you look into data before the pandemic in terms of these routes before they were there? Yesterday, we had to put flyers on the shelters and stops and poles along that route because we didn't see any information from Ddot on there about that. We went into the grocery stores along the routes, other businesses, a nonprofit as well too that services clients for food to let them know that their route is going to be eliminated. No one knew. So my gripe with Ddot is your inadequate communication. It is not that difficult to be putting signs and things and zip ties and laminated papers on the signs to say your route is in danger of being eliminated. Make a comment on this, right? We know already what's going to happen on the 15th, but at least communicate with the public
Thank
about
you. That is time. Steve, you want to address any?
Yes, all I can say is what I said before, that we know how much service we can deliver on the street every day. So we are matching our schedule to the amount of service that we can actually deliver. We know we have way more trips on the schedule than we can put out on the street, and it's not about money. I mean, money is part of it, but it's mostly about just that we don't have the resources to get the service out, and we need we're always looking, we're looking for operators and mechanics, and we need to and plus, as we know, our ridership is down. It's only half of what it was, less than half of what it was before the pandemic. So we are cutting about 20% of the service in the schedule because we know that we're missing about 20% of the trips. So by doing that, we should be able to get, we're downsizing the schedule based on the ability to deliver service at this time.
Let me help out a little bit. I actually understand and see what Renard means, because, I know it seems kind of strange. We received 64 million in CARES Act funding, another 20 million in Chris is coming, and we have 51 million coming in ARP funding, which we intend to talk to you, the people, to address different buckets that this funding can go into. I can tell you that either way, it doesn't matter what bucket we throw it into, it doesn't address, as Steve said, what we're dealing with today. What we're dealing with today is lower ridership. Of course, we need more operators, but we've had an operator problem. Things are different. We were providing transportation pre-pandemic to the tune of 70,000 riders a day. Now I think we're down to 30,000 or so. With that being said, take 30,000 riders, spread them thin, spread them all over the place, and we're having a problem. So the actual relationship of the ARP funding or the CARES Act funding to what we're doing today, there's no comparison. I know over and over again, I know Renard has said, no, that's not factual. It's fact. That's just the way it is. We actually have the funds for more operators today without the ARP funding, without anything. We have had the funds in the past, about a year ago, when we were short operators. When you talk about operators, let's look at this. In July, we had approximately 489 or so operators, July 2020. Today, we're hovering around 410, about 410 or so, 400,000. So let's say we're short 80 operators, 80, 90 operators. I talked to Smart the other day. They're currently short 70 operators. This is not new. But what we did realize is with the pandemic and the way that things are now, where people aren't going to work peak, non-peak, and we at Ddot are spread out because our riders are spread out. We want to make sure that the transportation we provide is consistent. And yes, you may want it every 15 minutes, but if I can say every 20 minutes and it actually is there when you say, you can get the working plan. If it doesn't work out for you and you know the timing doesn't work, you can do what you have to do and plan. But if we say every 15 minutes and you're waiting 45 minutes, you can't plan because we're not consistent. Our job is to make sure that we give you the best transportation possible, but it's not related to the CARES Act or ARPA funds. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you. The next hand up I see is Ms. Franklin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Director Oglesby. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. There were a couple of items in a slide presentation that I wanted to address. The first one is the 28 new buses coming in February. I think that's great. The second one was also students at Wayne State will be able to ride free. So one of the things that I did not hear was how this all directly affects paratransit. The students who are taking paratransit to school, to Wayne County Community College, to any of the colleges that are in the area, to vocational school, will they also be able to ride free on paratransit? And then how in a relationship to paratransit, these 28 new buses, what's being done in paratransit to equate that? And then Mr. Patronak said that he rode the bus today, the Dexter bus line, great. And he rode bus yesterday. So to monitor the ridership, how many people are riding the bus, getting on and off the buses? What is being done to monitor the driver's performance on these buses? We did a Ghost Rider program through the Department of Justice maybe about 9 years ago. And it worked really well, brought up a lot of different things. But I was wondering if the drivers who are performing well, who are on time for work, is there any type of incentive for them? Because if we have a shortage of drivers now, we sure can't lose the good ones that we already have. So what's being done?
Thank you for your comments. There's time.
Thank you very much for your questions. I've jotted down about 7 things, and I don't even know if I got it all. So I hope somebody else wrote all that down, because that was a lot of questions, all great questions, but I don't know if I'll be able to even address all of it. So anybody from staff, please chime in. There was a comment about slide 28 new buses, and then it went to students ride for free. So the question was, from paratransit, there are students at Wayne State that will they ride for free? Well, paratransit, when you say paratransit from MetroLift standpoint, it is not a MetroLift program. From an ADA standpoint, if there's somebody with a disability that's going to be riding fixed route and does go to Wayne State and is a student, then yes, they'd ride for free. It's a student pass. So I'm not sure the specifics of that question, but hopefully I covered it. And then anybody from staff, please help me out.
Would you like to help me help out? Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay, great. What I was saying is the line haul is supposed to mirror paratransit, correct? So if people with disabilities or students with disabilities are riding the line haul for free, then students with disabilities who take the paratransit who are not able to ride the line haul should be able to go to school for free as well. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay. I can explain something about the UPass program, and it's not free. It's that the school, usually through student fees, is prepaying for unlimited rides for the whole student body. And they're paying based on a % of what a full student pass would cost, taking into account the fraction of students who are expected to use it. So it's not free, it's free to the student, but it's prepaying for those rides.
So then the student probably needs to go to the faculty and let them know that they take paratransit so that they can utilize this service for free as well, just like the other students that are utilizing it. Not for free, but
I don't
through
believe
their
they're
tuition.
covering, I don't believe they paid for paratransit rides for their student body. Okay.
But to her point, which is a very good point, Wayne State came up with this program and came to us. So yes, if that was something that was desired, definitely it should be brought up to them. I will tell you that I will definitely send an email and bring it up myself. But yes, that would be something that needs to be addressed. I actually understand what you mean. Also, as far as mirroring paratransit, mirroring fixed route. It does to a degree. As you know, it provides transportation within a quarter of a mile of each bus stop and all of that stuff. But I think you bring a very good point out. And I'm actually gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna take your idea and make some phone calls if that's all right.
Thank you. It's perfectly all right. That's a weird.
Thank you.
Okay, the next hand up I see is Ted Tansley.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for the time tonight. I had really kind of just two questions. First is regarding talent acquisition over at Ddot. I know you're really short staffed, and I'm just kind of curious as for what you're doing to try to bring your staff up to par and get those numbers back up. Like, for instance, I was kind of curious if Ddot can stipulate that employees need to stay a specific amount of time, or they'll have to pay back training. I know it was mentioned before that that you lose a lot of drivers to other systems or other sorts of industries. So I was curious if that's a pathway for Ddot here, if that's even legal. So that's one question. The other question is, hearing that the operational analysis will have extensive public engagement, that sounds really exciting to me. However, I'm kind of curious as to what that means. What is extensive public engagement? How is that being determined? And then the full scope of the engagement that you have in mind currently and what you want to achieve. I know, for instance, I was in DC a couple years ago visiting, and they had bus ambassadors go on every single bus and at bus stops, and they were communicating with anybody that was riding the service, using the service, and interviewing with them and surveying riders to get more information about where they're going, why they're on that route, where they're trying to go, and what needs that they have so that they can better design a system that works for the most riders. And so I'm curious if that's something that you're interested in doing or intend on doing. I just kind of had those two main questions regarding these things coming up.
Okay, let me start and then I'm going to pass it. As far as talent acquisition, I'm going to let Marianne handle that. But as far as the bus ambassador question, I love the idea. As a matter of fact, we're supposed to have bus ambassadors. When I came on board during the pandemic, there were a lot of positions furloughed. There were a lot of positions work shared. And then there were some with it just budget cuts. And believe it or not, the 4 bus ambassadors that we wanted to have out to do the exact same thing, I got cut. So I'm in the process during this new budget cycle to present to the finance group in the city that, these are important positions. People see the title ambassador, they don't think it's important. People see the title of, let's say admin assistant, they don't think it's important, but they don't realize that's the person that gathers all the data to be able to get the information to know when the buses are coming. So I've been kind of presenting this in various locations, and the bus ambassador thing is definitely something that we want to move forward with. They're not in our budget right now because they got cut. Talent acquisition, again, Marianne Walsh will talk about it, but as far as the thought of bus operators when we bring them on board, you're 100% correct. It is happening. We bring people on board. We train them. I have no problem telling you, it costs probably about $7,000 to get their CDL and everything else. Once they get that CDL, they take it and they go to another place that may have an incentive, right? Because they're more valuable. So we're working on how to retain individuals. From a legal standpoint, I'm still looking at that to see whether we can actually make them stay. You know how difficult that is, because there are various scenarios that you can leave on, and whether it's true or not, they could say it and then it's a battle. So we are looking at that. But again, great question and great ideas. We're jotting them down, and we have been looking at that. We'll continue to look at it. Marianne?
Hello, sir. Well, I'm pleased to say that Ddot postings right now are one of the most popular postings in the city right now. I'm not sure if we've garnered some attention through these meetings and other meetings that we've had, but we interviewed every applicant in our system. We had about 80 applicants, and all that were qualified. We interviewed yesterday and today, and sort of all hands on deck fashion, and we will hope to have a large class starting in October to start to fill these vacancies. We have great pay. We do give paid training. We start at $14.35 an hour for our operators, and within after 12 months they go to $17.43. So it is a great job with paid training, and we're excited that we're very popular right now. So thank you all if you've been spreading the word for us.
And let me jump in again and say, if we haven't said it before, we're looking for not only operators, we're looking for mechanics. We have, I believe, customer service reps. We have some great opportunities. There was a comment, I want to take this time because I saw a comment in the chat portion about why don't we bring the wages up to SMART. I don't know who put that post in, but prior to my arrival, the operators were in union negotiations, and they were getting a lot less than the SMART operators, and that was a big issue. When we finished negotiations, they are making the same, and actually in one of the portions, a little bit more than the SMART operators make. So we are competitive. You come in low, and I believe, Marianne, it's $14.50 at first, but then after the first 6 months, I think there's a jump because they're a student.
I'm
right?
sorry, yes, within after training, you get a bump, and then after probation, you get a bump, and then after 12 months, you get a bump.
So by saying that, what we've done is your thought of, well, why don't you, when you hire them, why don't you come up with an idea of having them sign something to stay? What we did is we gave them a bump at the very beginning on the front end to want them to stay. Some have and some haven't. I think it would have been a great concept if everybody, if there wasn't a worldwide shortage of people working right now. So they get the bump, but really what they're going for is that CDL license, because the value of that is a lot more than the bump. So no good deed goes unpunished. We put the right form in, and I think in time, as this again worldwide shortage of individuals shortens, I think it'll work out. But right now, again, like Marianne said, one day I'm saying we need operators, and I come in on Monday and we have 80 operators in the potential operators in the queue. So I was so excited. You have no idea. What does that mean? That means we're doing what we're doing now to make the service consistent so you can depend on it. And then as our resources grow, we add to that. We either add to the consistency, bring back the routes that are productive, or even expand. And again, that's our ultimate goal, is to expand. But when I first came here, I said, I want to come in, and I had all these great ideas of expanding, but there's this thing called COVID that took place. And it's a pandemic that hasn't happened since the Spanish flu, which I've never dealt with before. So we have to get through this, get things where we need to go, and then we're home free. And with your input and comments, I think we're going to get there.
Thank you. And a quick follow-up, just on the public engagement side of it. What does that look like going into the rest of this year and coming into the next year when you're redesigning the system?
Steve Paternick, can you speak to that, please?
You're muted, Steve.
I think Steve answered the question on mute.
Okay.
You have to start
Could you
over
give me
again,
the
Steve.
highlights of the
Yeah,
question
start,
again?
yeah.
He wants a question again.
What does our public engagement look like with the rest of the year and into next year with the comprehensive, you know what I'm trying to say?
Comprehensive operational analysis, or we just call it the COA because it is hard to say, doesn't come out of the mouth very easily. So between now and November, our priority is that to reach everyone about the service cuts package, that no one will go to the bus stop on November 15th and be surprised that they're about whatever change is happening. So of course the route suspensions and the route shortenings are more are the highest priority, and the frequency changes are will actually make the service more consistent. So, but we want to make sure that everybody knows. So we have almost 2 months to get the word out to our passengers once the final decision is made about what the service will be. So, and then once we get past November, the priorities will be to involve people in the comprehensive operational analysis, and of course to continue to keep people informed about developments in our transit system. So, no, the people who are on the email chains and the people who are on social media who follow Ddot, we know those people keep informed. But as far as the majority of passengers, we know they're harder to reach. And
But you
would
will be
anyone else like
reaching
to
them?
fill in? Yeah. But we won't stop trying to reach them, of course.
Thanks, Steve. Before we call our next person, I want to acknowledge another question here from Ms. Marguerite. She's asking if can we address the overcrowding and being passed up on the buses?
Well, that's what these changes are intended to do, to get the service out consistently. If we don't have these 1 hour gaps, we won't have overcrowded buses. Like I said before, the ridership is less than half of what it was before the pandemic. We know we have the capacity, but the problem is when one trip is missing, the next driver picks up a double load. When 2 trips are missing consecutively, the next driver picks up a triple load. And that is why the buses are overcrowded, not because the ridership levels are high. So as Mr. Oglesby said before, by getting the service out consistently at a consistent, even if the frequency isn't as good as it looks on paper right now, the frequency on the street will be consistent. You know, we admit fully that we're not delivering what's on paper right now.
Right, but we can assure you after we're done with what we've laid out, we have a better chance of providing 100% of what we have scheduled. And really that's our goal. Our goal is just to be consistent and give you the ability to be on your way and get to where you need to be. And we do believe that this first step, which is an emergency pick, you know, we'll have to take a look at it. If we get a whole bunch of operators and all kinds of resources, you never know how quickly this, how we may be here again. But I'll tell you, we're doing the best with what we have. And again, we're taking the existing service that we're providing and we are just shaping it in a way that is productive. People are hearing, they keep saying cuts. And I say, no, that's not it. I did see a comment and I got a text also about hazard pay. Smart's getting hazard pay. And why aren't our operators getting hazard pay? Well, that's a good question. I asked that question too, and I gave it a shot. The reality is the way that we started getting hazard pay at the very beginning of this versus the way that Smart was completely different. We were receiving government funds for hazard pay specifically, and as a city, Ddot drivers got pay. I believe the police and fire were getting hazard pay, all frontline employees. When that funding ended, I believe it was through the governor, all of those entities had to stop getting hazard pay. So fire, police, and Ddot operators. What we're doing and what the public's doing, and I sort of understand it, is basically comparing Ddot to Smart. But you have to realize we are not Smart. We are not a separate transit system. We are a city transit system. So we are not able to do it as easily as Smart does. Are we looking at incentives and are we talking to the union? Absolutely. Is there something that we're trying to do? Yes, there is. But it won't be most likely won't be in the form of hazard pay because comparing us to Smart is apples and oranges. So I just want to make sure that people understand that.
Thank you. The next hand up I see is Carolyn Pruitt.
Good evening. Thank you for the space and the opportunity to share. I do have a comment as well as a few questions. So my comment is that I am a resident of the historic Old West Side community. Our boundaries are West Grand Boulevard, Tireman, McGraw, or in some cases Warren, down to Livernois. I've noticed in years past that there have been other bus routes that were very instrumental to my community that were cut, which leads me to question or just have serious concern about the elimination or potential elimination of the Tireman route. And here comes the questions. So one, how long would this proposed suspension be? And what is the process for that? How do we ensure that this will be a route that will be back established, recognizing that currently due to the pandemic, ridership is down. I live in a community where we have lifelong residents, majority seniors and or renters. And so our seniors are not fully acclimated back to what we're calling the, society post-pandemic. My other question is, there was a mention about getting out the information about this meeting today. I didn't learn of it until yesterday. Were the brochures being handed out to folks on the actual routes? Because I think that's one good way to ensure that people are made aware and can share the information. My other question is, during the PowerPoint presentation, the slide that referenced the 28 buses to replace the 48, does that mean that we're out of 20 buses? And that goes until, will that extend until the next year? Or how does that work? Thank you.
Hello, Michael Oglesby. Great questions. I'm going to address the bus question and then let staff do the rest. So I'm going to do this backwards. So typically when you're replacing buses, you don't replace them all at the same time. You create a fleet replacement program. All of the buses have been replaced with the exception of 48. They're 48 older vehicles. So you typically replace half. We're going to replace half this year and then half the following year. And then that cycle continues every single year. I think that the way that the slide was created was misleading. We're just providing 28 of the required buses, but that's what was planned. Okay, so there's nothing to see here. When we provide the 28 vehicles, we take 28 of the old vehicles out of service. We have some 2010s out there. I think if you ride the bus, you've seen them. They're on their last leg. They need to go, and then we're going to replace the others. And it's going to continue, coupled with the fact that we're going to get some electric buses in, and we're going to continue with a fleet replacement program. Steve, I don't know if you want to address the other stuff.
As we increase our workforce, we plan to restore service levels. We can't give you exact dates, but the goal is that when we implement the comprehensive operational analysis in probably just over a year, that we would be at a similar service level to before the cuts. So that wouldn't mean the exact same system would come back or the exact same schedules would come back, but it means that the network envisioned in the comprehensive operational analysis would be equivalent in service, in the levels of service to what we had before we cut the service during the pandemic.
And also, my staff will answer your question about how the information is disseminated about this particular meeting.
Yeah, tonight's meeting, this is different from our service meeting. We did have the public hearings held on the 1st. So this is our monthly meeting that is held every third Thursday. But we did, as far as the information, we have it posted obviously on our website and our social media. We do have it, also at our Ddot locations at Rosa Parks Transit Center and at our old admin building, which is 1301. So that information was distributed throughout. But this is, like I said, this was not regarding our service changes. Those public hearings were held on September 1st.
Thank you for that. If I can just add one thing, I do think that it would be very helpful in, if that information could be shared with folks that are on the bus, just recognizing that they would be directly impacted. And I would just also like to elevate that I live in a neighborhood that has a lot of history and heritage. And so taking our bus routes also, it potentially hinders our ability to be as accessible and as popular with folks that we're hoping to attract to the community. And so I just would like to leave that there. And again, thank you for allowing me to share this evening.
Thank you. Great comments. And we agree with you 100%. I recall not too long ago when it was brought forward that we're having some serious issues delivering our service. I was told by just about everybody on this call that was there then, you have to do something now. Do something now. Well, I can't snap my fingers and make more people show up for ridership. I can't snap my fingers and make more bus operators show up. But what I can do right now is right size the system. So when I hear things like, why are you doing this so quickly? What's the urgency? The urgency is you all told me there's urgency and it needs to be addressed. So I'm addressing it. So it's almost like, again, no good deed goes unpunished. We are addressing the needs of the people. As far as various communities are going to be affected by our temporary reductions, we have to do something now. We have to fish where the fish are. You even admit that ridership on those lines today aren't up to par. So why don't we use those resources today where they're needed? And then when the ridership looks like it is up to par and we get more resources, then we move them back. As a matter of fact, if we get to a point where we have too many resources, sure, we'll run empty buses along the route and have 10 people a day get on. But today is not the day. It's almost like the rainy day fund. It's raining and we have to do something now. So that's what this is. So again, we are doing what we were told we need to do, act, and we're acting.
All right, thank you. The next hand up I see is Callie Wang.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Hey folks, my name is Callie Wang. I'm a District 6 resident and sometime Ddot driver. And there's been a lot of discussion about these schedule cuts. And I want to raise the question of what is the plan to bring back service to the way it was before. I think the reason that you're taking so much heat is because people have lost confidence. And it's not clear how long this will take, where we're at now, or where we need to be. What I would like to see from Ddot is a plan for what kind of strategies they're doing to attract more operators. I'm very happy to hear that there's 80 folks being onboarded, but what's the level of service? How many service hours does that get us? How many service levels hours are we at right now? How many do we have? Were they running right before the pandemic? And what's the progress over time? To keep the public updated, have a plan. We understand that things can change, but just having a roadmap outlined will help a lot to restore confidence, to understand that, hey, this is something that we're working on, and this is something, and here's how we're going to get there. Other thing is, what's the plan for the $100 million of federal stimulus money? That we understand that you can't just snap your fingers and have operators, but how are we going to use that to hire and retain more staff? I just think that if there's a detailed roadmap and regular updates along the way, we're gonna have a better sense and understanding of what's going on, how we can get there. Like, for example, I'm pulling up right now, I'm on the Ddot performance dashboard on the website. There's information on.
That is actually time. Thank you.
I guess I could talk a little about the roadmap. The first step is to right-size the system, as Director Oglesby mentioned. So we're in the process of doing that right now. The next step would be the comprehensive operational analysis and perhaps smaller service restorations along the way before that, if we have the resources available. So our plan is to build and to restore and to rationalize everything with a plan that the public will be involved in.
Right. So people hear comprehensive operational analysis. People are seeing that we're moving forward with decisions, but they don't realize that there's a sweet science to plan from a planning standpoint that my planning staff has been working on that does include taking a look at service hours, does take a look at ridership, which I did indicate the change in the numbers. I don't know to what detail everybody's looking for, but all of these things are done and we're doing it moving forward. As far as $100 million in stimulus money and the plan for that, I am not sure what you're referring to. I know there was approximately a large sum of money coming to the city for city purposes, but for transportation purpose, I indicated what they were already. 64 million in CARES Act, which to date have been spent and were used to offset operations and fare box. $20 million in CRISA funds, which are coming forward, which are actually slated to offset fare box because the ridership's lower. And then we have the 51 million in ARP funds that I'm going to be turning to you to get your opinion on. Now, I hope no good deed goes unpunished here. And I say, okay, here are the buckets. And then that's not good enough. So I'm not sure where that $100 million part is. From a roadmap standpoint, I agree. Perhaps we need to go back to the drawing board and sort of lay out specifically. We have said why we're doing the cuts. We have showed statistics and data in the presentation and the other meetings as to the reasons why. We went to the statistics of specifically how the changes will take place so you get better service. So we thought, wow, this is going to be good. We're going to get better service, right? No, that's not good anymore. Now, yeah, you're going to get good service, but what's next? And what's your plan next to bring it back? Well, our plan is to provide good service to you. And then we're going to be analyzing from that point to be able to tell you what we can do. But right now we have to act now. And that's why we're doing an emergency pick. So I understand your frustration of, well, what's your plan all the way out? I'm telling you what our plan is, and Steve put it very eloquently, until January. And we do have a plan to have an analysis done. Now with a comprehensive operational analysis, typically that takes a long period of time, but during the time that it takes, there are decisions that can be made that can be enhanced within the first quarter of next year. Do I intend to think that this level of service will continue for a long period of time? No, I did not. I would hope that by the first quarter of next year, we will be we'll be returning back to better service or expanded service, depending on our resources. Steve?
Yeah, I also point out that every transit agency in the United States is having the same issues, that they've lost about half of their ridership and or more, and some have lost more than we did. Some have lost almost as much as we did proportionally. But the future of transit may not be the same as it was in the past. And when I ride the bus now, I don't see people other than me dressed for the office. I see people dressed for construction. I see people dressed, casually, but I don't see people dressed in office clothes. And so there's a possibility that people who worked remotely, who are office employees, may never go back to their offices, or they may only go back once or twice a week. So we have to build the transit system of the future. We just can't go back and build the transit system of the past, because the travel patterns of the past may never come back again. We have to try and,
Yeah. That's because I think it's one thing. I think we need to have a discussion, because I am seeing Again, I'm trying to, this is the first time I've actually figured out how to have the chat run on the other side. So that's why my eyes are going crazy if anybody's looking. There's a comment, the last comment of the last caller that they couldn't get out was a question about why aren't the statistics put up about pullout, and we need to know what's going on with ridership and so on and so forth. And I think, Steve, what we need to do, and we've been talking about this, is talk about the metrics, the true metrics that cover service versus the metrics that you've been looking at. Because quite frankly, everybody keeps talking about pullout, wanting to see the pullout numbers. The pullout numbers do not represent the service that's on the street. What represents the service on the street is the service hours versus the scheduled service hours versus the actual service. And Steve, if you want to talk about that a little bit, I think it'll be important because I hear it over and over again by the same people, and I don't know whether they want to hear it or not, but I think it's important that we do it again. So if you could talk about
And it's actually the service miles that we want to cover, because the service hours, if a bus gets stuck and breaks down on the street, it's still accumulating hours, but it's not driving anywhere. So the new metric that we're starting involves service hours as a percent of the service hours delivered as a percentage of the service hours in the schedule. And right now we're close to 80%, and we're hoping that it can be closer to 100 after the November changes.
Right, and that's important. So I think, and we'll get into this more, but we're going to be changing the metrics in such a way that is so transparent that you'll be able to see what's scheduled and what's actually being performed in the street in service, not what pulled out. Because what pulled out does not reflect whether the bus is crowded, on-time performance, doesn't do all of that. So we are working on some new metrics. Stay tuned. And once you see them, it'll be very clear. And I think you'll all be very happy. And if we couple that with right sizing the service, and we put together make sure that the new tracker that we're working on is point on because it's directly linked to the GPS on the bus, you will have the tools to be able to take public transportation. We will have provided the first step towards excellent service. So this is just the first step, but it's required in order to get to the next level of service.
That's the kind of data that a lot of folks want to hear. So that's encouraging to hear. The other thing is, like you said, as I mentioned in the comments, the dashboard that's on the Ddot website hasn't shown anything since May. So I understand that a lot of people may be working with outdated data in the members of the public. And that's something I'd like to see more of.
No, understood. And let me comment on that. So not to get too technical, but there's a software that when routes are put together, it's called Trapeze that Ddot had been using. During the pandemic, Ddot switched over, and when I say Ddot, we switched over to a system called Hastas. We've been working on it diligently. The switch over will provide much better data, not only for the public, but for us, in order to look at the schedules, to track the schedules, to track performance, coupled with the automatic passenger counters. So what you may be seeing, and again, I have to take a look at it, may be the switchover between that period of time. And then again, with the pandemic, there were a lot of metrics that were being tracked prior to pandemic that when I came on board, it stopped. Oh, before I got here, it stopped and it never started again. So we tried to start it, but you can't match Trapeze with Hastas information. So it looks a little off. But I can assure you again, getting back to our promise is the metrics that you're going to see, you'll be very happy with.
Thank you. And the next hand up I see is L. Williams.
Yes, my name is Linda Williams. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My main thing was the safety of, since we are extending the mask for the passengers. I've been riding Ddot buses for years. The drivers are the main ones that I've noticed that don't wear masks. Some of the drivers have them, some of them don't. Some of them make sure the passengers, you should put your mask on before you board the bus. And, you know, they have masks, some of them don't have masks, but they don't put them off the bus and saying you can't ride because you don't have a mask. They have even asked other passengers, anybody got an extra mask? How can we get to making the drivers accountable for wearing their masks? And
I'm good.
oh, okay, go ahead.
No, I'll write it down. We're so anxious to answer your question. I was going to start and then let Mr. Zek go, but no, please continue.
Okay, the other issue was over the years, of course, with some of the newer buses out, that I noticed that some of the buses are just terrible. It looks like they've been sitting up in the terminals and all they did was just bring them out because they're running. So they bring them out. You really don't feel comfortable sitting down because they're dirty. They're just dirty. And I think that's a shame. Over the years, they used to have tenants to attendees to clean the buses, and it just needs to get back to that part that you'll feel a little more comfortable. And since we are back still with the mask, what about the ridership as far as so many passengers? Because the first week of every month, the buses are crowded. Everyone I've been on, and certain times of the mornings into the early afternoon.
I'm sorry, that is time. I do want to, we are past 6:30, so I do just want to acknowledge that we'll probably take about one more after we answer this. But everyone else will still get an opportunity. You all know to email us. You continue to put it in chat, but we are just running out on time, but that was 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. My name is Richard Zek. I am the Chief Safety Officer for Ddot, ma'am. In relation to your question about masks, it was put out at the beginning of this meeting in the slides of the directive for the continued use of masks through at least January 18th, 2022. That same information has been put out to our staff most recently at yesterday's safety meeting. It will be also continue to be put out at local garage safety meetings. There are also road supervisors that will uphold that directive, that are operators, when they're operating the coach, must have their masks on. I am very sorry that you have seen masks or operators without masks on, and looking at various times and days out in the field through video or whatnot, I have seen them wearing them, but I'm going to take your concern as very valid and work with operations and dispatch to ensure that it is appropriately followed as it should be for the benefit of the public health. In terms of, go ahead.
Let me answer on the mask part too. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. That makes me mad. I have no problem saying that to the caller, because what makes me angry is that I've had callers tell me about this. I've went to maintenance. I guarantee that there'll be masks available on the bus. It is not fair to charge a fare, say mask required, and then say I'm going to provide masks and not have them. So we're going to look into that, and thank you for bringing it to my attention. I will not tolerate us not having masks when I have almost a warehouse full of them that we need to give. At one point, people were saying people were taking them. Okay, I don't believe that's happening, especially nowadays, right? Most of the people have masks, some people forget them. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that really gets to me a little bit. Now, as far as the operators not wearing masks, I heard that too. And I'm going to start going out there myself and taking a look with Richard. We're going to start driving around and having some conversations. Go ahead, Richard. I know you had something else to say.
Oh, sir, I think you've covered it properly there with your follow through. So
yeah, the question about the newer buses or some of the buses coming out and being dirty. Again, I'm not happy about that, because we were paying a lot of money. As a matter of fact, the majority of the CARES Act funding was going towards making sure that the buses are clean. I won't tolerate that. We're gonna look into that and see what's going on, even if it requires taking a look at cameras. But we did change over at one point to some new cleaners. because we were having problems with the older ones, and I was hoping that that problem had been solved. And we're going to be talking to the providers that are doing the cleaning and our internal cleaners to make sure that we handle it. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. Kristen?
I think we are, well, we're gonna take one more, we're gonna wrap here. I'm asking Miss Marguerite, I know I've had said a few comments from her, but she has not had her whole 2 minutes. She wanted to clarify a point. I don't know if she was putting it in chat or if there's something that we can come back to her tomorrow. So I was trying to give her a chance to respond.
I'll tell you what, if we don't get to it, why don't we, do we have it? I can't see it in the chat.
I don't see, but we do have her information. It was, I think she was trying to clarify the point earlier regarding the overcrowding. I know there was still questions that about saying that we didn't really address being passed up, that we addressed overcrowding, but not people being.
Well, overcrowding and pass up go hand in hand, right? So we did, I got you. So we did address it. We just didn't address it the way that they liked it. So let's try it another way. If we get rid of, if the schedule is separated appropriately and we get rid of a thing called bus bunching, I'm sure you've all seen two buses very close to each other and then one doesn't come from a long period of time. If everything's set up in an appropriate way, that doesn't happen anymore. If we schedule it out and we take a look at the ridership after, we take a look at how the buses are crowded or not crowded after that, then I think that will offset the issue which Mr. Petronik had mentioned earlier. But we do have to fix the schedule problem. Steve, did you want to say something?
Yes, that the issue of missing trips is what drives all of these things. Because if an operator has to pick up a double load or a triple load of passengers because his or her leader is missing, then that slows the first bus down and then the second bus catches up to it. And that is how the bus bunching usually comes about. So, and the pass ups and all of that. So by having by having buses at regular, consistent intervals, we hope that we will never have to pass anyone up, because as we mentioned, the passenger loads are less than half of what they were before the pandemic. So we should not be having overcrowded buses, and we wouldn't if every trip on the schedule were out on the street and people would know when the buses would come by in a consistent way. Yeah, that's but yeah, none of us want to see pass ups. None of us want to see overcrowding, especially when the total number of passengers is only half of what it used to be. So that means that there's empty buses driving around because some buses are packed, other buses are empty. We have to right size the system and right size the schedule so that the loads are distributed evenly, and then there won't be any overcrowding.
Thank you. I think, did you have any other closing words? Mr. Oglesby? That maybe you're about to.
No, I don't have any closing words. Again, I appreciate all comments, whether positive or not. We take all comments. We appreciate them. Again, currently, we want the system to be the best. We want to increase reliability. I think, again, reliability comes with the concept of, I don't want to say we're going to provide transportation every 15 minutes, not knowing that we don't have the resource, and you could wait up to 45 minutes. And then if there's bus bunching, probably up to 3 hours. But if we can right size it in such a way that it's every 20 minutes, you have to wait another 5 minutes, but the bus actually comes on time. I truly think that is, that's going to solve a lot of the problems, not all of the problems. This is a problem that's taking place in a lot of locations. Smart is short 70 operators right now. I saw an article with Ann Arbor. It said something that I think the the CEO there said he doesn't think he'll be able to get to pre-pandemic. It'll take years. I think he even said 8 years. I think that's a bit much, but so every system's dealing with it their own way. I think what we need to do is fix the base and then grow. It's that simple. There's no trickery here. We're being very straightforward. And I wish everybody well, and I appreciate everybody coming out, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next month in October. Again, if you were not able to make your comment, I put the email in chat, d.comments@detroitmi.gov. Feel free to reach out to us.